Yeah, this video is made on way too short of a deadline, so it's very scuffed and I cut a lot of corners. Sorry about that. Anyway, I guess I'll get started. Imagine you wake up in hell, sentenced to roll a boulder up a hill for the rest of forever. Then what? Would you suffer? It's pointless endless repetition, so I'd imagine most of us would hate it. I mean, I would. Now, enter Franz Kafka. Mr. Kafka wrote a wacky story called Metamorphosis, and it follows a kind of similar situation. Gregor, a traveling salesman, wakes up as a humongous insect. He's promptly shunned and attacked by his family, repeatedly neglected, and eventually severely injured by his father, until he dies in an anticlimactic and ultimately meaningless manner. In the months leading up to his death, Gregor is locked in his room with nothing to do except scuttle around and occasionally eat the table scraps his sister offers. It sounds about as monotonous and hellish as pushing a boulder up a hill for the rest of eternity. Because of the similarities, I like to call Mr. Kafka's Metamorphosis a mundanely Sisyphean tragedy. There is no hope, no happiness surrounding Gregor's existence. It's clear that he lives, even from his own perspective, as purely a tool for his family's use. However, through the metamorphosis, Gregor is given an opportunity to explore life anew, as a bug. But he doesn't. Gregor and his family repeatedly reject his newfound bug-like nature, and this is where, I believe, they made a crucial misstep leading to the family's terrible unhappiness. And here comes the thesis statement. In Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, Kafka depicts the Samsa family's denial of Gregor's transformation and the suffering it brings, ultimately revealing the importance of accepting change and moving on from the past. That's a lot of words. Let's break it down. So we see that in the days following Gregor's transformation, the Samsa family, Gregor and all the rest of the family members, suffer very, very greatly. They have a very high emotional pressure on them. Right? It says that the family ate practically nothing. Gregor kept hearing them vainly urging one another to eat. Their unwillingness to eat indicates shock and disgust at their new situation, and Gregor himself is filled with grief and shame at no longer being able to fulfill his familial duties. So the entire family is suffering, and this is caused by their attachment to Gregor's humanity. Gregor himself attempts to retain it, evident when Greta and Mrs. Samsa attempt to clear his room. The moment they enter and Mrs. Samsa speaks, Gregor thinks, just now he'd been on the brink of forgetting, and only his mother's voice had brought him back. Gregor is brought back from the brink of forgetting because he suddenly realizes that he, in fact, doesn't want anything removed. He even states that he couldn't do without the furniture, and if the furniture were to impede his senselessly crawling around, that would be a great advantage. By calling his crawling senseless, and the crawling is a very bug-like behavior, and trying to impede it, Gregor both rejects his transformation and clings to his humanity. However, this clinging only serves to harm him and the family. As Gregor tries to stop Greta and Mrs. Samsa from moving his belongings, he guards a picture frame from Greta. It says here that, to Gregor, her intentions were obvious. She wanted to chase him down from the wall. Well, just let her try. He clung to his picture and he wasn't going to give it up. He'd rather fly at Greta's face. Gregor clinging to the picture parallels his struggle to maintain his humanity. His clinging causes him to assume malice from Greta, evident from the perceived intention and reaction. The wording here displays Gregor's determination in defending the remains of his humanity, willing to even fly at Greta's face. In short, Gregor's denial of his metamorphosis makes him act rashly, lashing out at his mother and sister and further isolating him from the family. The family also seems to cling to Gregor's humanity. When Greta freaks out, she yells at Mr. Samsa, "You just have to get rid of the idea that this is Gregor. Our real misfortune is having believed it for so long." So the way she says that makes it very clear that they were still hoping that somewhere in there was a human Gregor, right? But human Gregor, the past Gregor, no longer exists. It's the bug is still Gregor, obviously, like I'm Aaron, but the human Gregor is just like this Aaron. And the fact that both of them only exist in the past. The past me is no longer me, so me talking right now is an entirely different person, just stemming from that moment. I guess what I'm trying to illustrate is that the Samsa family is trapped in the past, and the ceaseless clinging is only harmful to them, clear through the many painful outcomes that resulted from their denial. So there are a few occasions in this story where the family actually isn't stuck in the past, and in these moments they truly do live and enjoy life to an extent. In Gregor's case, this is most evident when Gregor embraces his bugginess. For example, when Greta offers him a range of foods, he shows no interest in the fresh ones, instead eating the rotten table scraps. Tears of joy welled up in his eyes. Loving rotten food is entirely different from his previous tastes as a human, yet Gregor becomes incredibly happy to the point of tears. Similarly, Gregor enjoys hanging from the ceiling, and that state brings him a giddy absent-mindedness. In both cases, Gregor displays more contentment when embracing his bug-like propensities. For the rest of the Samsa family, it's only once they finally give up on Gregor's humanity that they begin to recover and thrive. The final scene of the story ends on a remarkably and, at least superficially, happy note. In stark juxtaposition to the previous suffering caused by a focus on the past, the story ends focused on a bright future. The final sentence of the book says, "And it was as if, in confirmation of their new dreams and good intentions, that at the end of their ride, their daughter got up first and stretched her young body." The focus on new dreams and good intentions paints an idea of soon-to-be good fortune, like the new apartment the family bought. Ending on Greta's youth also indicates the blossoming potential now within the family's reach. Thus, we observe 3 stages to the Samsa family's metamorphosis. First, Gregor becomes a bug, and the family is trapped in the past. They suffer because they cling to the idea of Gregor rather than who he is now. Then, the Samsas, including Gregor, accept that he is a bug. The turning point occurs when Greta yells at Mr. Samsa, and the family finally accepts that the Gregor they knew no longer exists. Finally, having accepted the change, the Samsas are able to move on and seek a brighter future. Through this development, Kafka highlights the dangers of being stuck in the past and the importance of acceptance. In our own lives, there's profound importance in acceptance, because even if it cannot resolve a situation, it tempers our will. Philosopher Seneca famously said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." This single quote reflects a highly important part of Stoicism, the philosophical school that Seneca practiced and taught. That pain and suffering originate purely from the mind, and while we may not control any given situation, like Sisyphus and the boulder or Gregor's metamorphosis, we can control our reaction to it. Instead of mentally fleeing to extremes like denial or rage or grief, it may be better to simply accept it. So, I guess Seneca is saying that our suffering doesn't exist. It isn't real. Yeah. None of this is.